Oh, what's up, Ada Gang? Welcome into Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here for Read Brief Cardano news-based update. We'll be touching on three separate topics. We're first going to kick off with a brief market overview, taking a look at some of the top trending tokens, followed by a brief update on governance. I did release a video yesterday. Check that one out. Basically breaking down all of the three or some of the biggest ongoing Cardano-based proposals. And then after governance, we're going to briefly talk about Lenfi. Now, Lenfi has been sort of a big talking point here, given how quiet the team has been since finding a bug with V2 of their protocol, bringing on pooled lending back in December or at the end of the year of 2024. Now, there's a potential acquisition that we might see, and I want to break down exactly why I believe that is. And then we're going to close out by looking at the state of stablecoins and really just highlighting JED, USDM, USDA, and IUSD from Indigo. And I want to give some particulars about which stablecoins we've got the most of and exactly what I see happening in the future for these stable assets. Now, before we go any further, if it's your first time stopping by, my goal is to help you find your footing here within the Cardano and Bitcoin ecosystems. If you appreciate content like this, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up on the way in. If you want more, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to voice off down below. Now, if you want to extend your support for the channel, consider delegating your ADA with either of the two Dapp Central stake pools, both sharing the ticker DAPP. Without any further ado, let's take a brief review of the market here, where we just have a 200K ADA buy order that has just landed on SNEC. Again, massive community here. They are coming in at number one over the last 24 hours. They also recently signed a contractual agreement or partnership with IOG in order to sort of closely or more closely align with one another moving forward. Again, they are by far the most traded and the biggest token on Cardano in terms of market cap. So don't fade the meme coins. A lot of people still believing in SNEC. And if you missed it, they were, I believe, the first ever Cardano native asset to be listed on a tier 1 centralized exchange, which was Kraken a couple of months back. Coming in at number 2, we've got WMTX. I just sat down with Mickey as a part of the World Mobile Alliance, joined by Cal, aka Clover Notes, as well as Rob, aka Trekpool, to break down the recent release of the dev mainnet. And of course, again, check that out. Mickey does a great job answering all the community's questions. But we talked about the dev mainnet, their onboarding of Tristan Thompson, professional NBA player right now based out of California. In addition to that, we talked about their expansion into South Korea and exactly what we can expect moving forward, as well as some pretty hot topics or pretty hot questions surrounding price action. Third, we've got none other than Strike Finance, a brand new perpetuals platform that has just launched here in the ecosystem, and they are doing numbers. Their market cap currently up to roughly $20 million. They have roughly 4 or 5x since their initial token offering. I've had Sean on the channel to break down what exactly they offer, which again is perpetuals, futures, and options. Right now on the mainnet, it's just perpetuals, but they're bringing in, I want to say, or they've already brought in, I should say, roughly around 150K ADA in terms of revenue for the platform. And they're currently adding liquidity to allow for more people to place trades. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, if not months, they're going to be opening things up for user-based or community-based liquidity to be added to the platform. So not only can you stake the Strike token, you'll also now be able to provide liquidity directly to the platform in order to earn a yield by supplying or allowing for other people to potentially use those funds in order to place trades. Coming in at number 4, we've got Iagon, and then at number 5, Bodega. So I'll be having more content about all of these sort of bigger projects that have been steadily growing and providing more value here in the ecosystem. Again, stay tuned. And as always, if you do enjoy updates like these, make sure to smash that thumbs up. Now let's talk about governance here. Like I said, I released a video yesterday breaking down the Intersect administered budget, the fact that Amaru has officially been approved, and there is a net change limit proposal that did not pass. So those are the 3 biggest things. Now, with all of that, if you are new to governance, I'll just briefly recap. There's a couple of different roles here. First, we've got the delegate representatives, or the DREPs, who essentially act as elected officials within the ecosystem. If you don't want to vote for ADA or for ADA governance proposal on your own, you can delegate your ADA to a DREP, and they'll basically be voting on your behalf. We've got stake pool operators, or SPOs, which I think pretty much everybody's familiar with. And then we've got delegating ADA holders, or single voters. as well as non-delegating ADA holders or people that choose to abstain. And then we also have the CC, or the Constitutional Committee. Now, back when we had the interim constitution take effect in Buenos Aires, Argentina, we also saw the introduction of the ICC, or the Interim Constitutional Committee. And so their job was to basically be there for a short term while we're getting our feet under us in terms of governance. And so I say all of that to announce the fact that there's now a brand new Constitutional Committee election timeline. So now the DREPs will have the ability to actually vote for who gets elected and who's now going to be sitting and representing and basically making sure that every action that's submitted for governance on Cardano fits by the Constitution and that it's deemed as constitutional. And so having said that, we have a change, right, where initially Intersect wanted to have this vote be done just through regular ADA holders, where anybody could essentially come in and vote for a CC member. However, they've now pivoted and they're now allowing for the DREP system to be used in order to make this vote happen. So it states here that in this light, and that's talking about the shift towards DREPs, and to maintain consistency with the evolving governance procedures, the brand new CC election process will now be transitioned to DREPs, or to a DREP-based voting system. In closing, we can also confirm that DREPs will be able to cast their votes using hot wallets, cold wallets, and the CLI, or the command line interface. In terms of the timeline, we've got the candidate selections by the DREPs, which begins on June 10th all the way to the end of the month. And then from the 1st of July through the 5th of July, we've got an audit and an announcement, followed by sometime in July/August, the update for the governance action to change the ICC to the brand new, or the elected new CC members. And then in September, that action should be ratified by the general Cardano community. So make sure to get up to speed. But if you aren't aware, right now, in terms of the ICC, we have the Cardano Atlantic Council. Let me pull them back up there. We also have the Eastern Cardano Council, followed by the Cardano Foundation, Emergo, IOG, the Cardano Japan Council, and Intersect. So at this point, these are sort of the 7 ICC members, and 7 is picked to make sure that there's always a tiebreaker. But there's no guarantee that any of these members will be reelected, and they might be, right? But again, it's going to be up to the DREPs to make that happen. And if you've missed it, recently, I believe Philip Ponce from Emergo mentioned the fact that they won't be using their ADA in order to actually vote, and they'll be delegating their ADA in order to sort of decentralize the community even further. And IOG, one of the 3 founding entities as well, also mentioned that they won't be using their ADA in order to participate in governance. So at this point, I believe of the 3 entities, it's just the Cardano Foundation that's going to be using their ADA to vote for Cardano governance actions. And I think Catalyst as well moving forward. So pretty cool stuff there when it comes to governance. Next, let's move on here. And if you want to find out more about sort of the treasury withdrawal process, which again, Amaru was just funded yesterday, a Rust-based client node for Cardano. This is basically what they're going to be using, right? Making sure to provide as much transparency and as much optionality, right, when it comes to withdrawals. And this is going to be extremely important when it comes to the 275 million ADA budget, which is going to be administered by Intersect, and the fact that there's 39 different proposals or different projects that'll be funded as a part of that 275 million ADA budget. So this breaks down some of the key things here: the overhead, the net change limit, the delivery windows, business assurances, everything that you need to think about. This breaks it down. I'll leave the link to this down below. And while we're talking about Amaru, like I said, the team is now working alongside the Sunday Labs team in Pi Laningham to finalize the first ever on-chain smart contracts that will manage the treasury funds for Cardano. So very, very bullish news, and congrats to the entire Amaru team for getting funded there as the first proposal, or the first governance proposal, to be able to make a withdrawal from the Cardano treasury. In addition, it also mentions here that in regards to Amaru, that Icon has also been accepted as an official language on GitHub, which is a big step here in adoption and recognition. And I just wanted to quickly sneak that in here. Icon getting a lot of adoption. I believe it's probably the most used in the sort of community favorite here when it comes to programming languages to simplify Plutus and Haskell development. And so really good to see them getting that official recognition from GitHub. By far one of the sort of most used code repository platforms. Now, if you actually want to check out some of the code around the treasury contracts, I'll leave this down below. But again, this is available on Pragma, and this is under the Amaru Treasury repository or document here. Again, not necessarily my wheelhouse or my cup of tea, but if diving into, smart contracts is your thing, I'll leave the link to this down as well. All right, let's move into Lenfi here. So I mentioned a while back, Montes and the team back in December found a bug with V2 version of their protocol. They initially started off as AADA Finance and rebranded into Lenfi, and things were going extremely well. By far, one of the most competitive and leading DeFi protocols for lending and borrowing. Their first version was peer-to-peer. They upgraded to pooled lending, and that was all permissionless, but they found a bug back in December, and they've been extremely quiet about sort of the relaunch of V2 ever since. So that has caused a lot of panic for their community. And unfortunately, we did see their token take a massive hit. But recently, we had a couple of members from the community ask Charles Hoskinson directly, what can we expect from Lenfi moving forward? And so this is coming here from Sapien, who's a big supporter of Lenfi, where he states that something big is coming for Lenfi and their community. And he knows because he's seen it. Now, I did a little bit more digging here, and shout out to Ada Sniper, and I'm going to play this very brief clip here from Charles Hoskinson, but he's basically talking about the potential rebirth of Lenfi. So could we see IOG buying out Lenfi? I do believe there's a high likelihood. We've seen IOG taking over the Nami wallet, IOG taking over, I want to say it was Blockfrost as well. And so IOG is in the business of buying, different platforms out, rebuilding them, and hopefully, getting their community back together and being able to move forward from all of the hurdles and all of the issues that Lenfi has faced as of late. So I'm going to play this brief clip here, and then we're going to keep things rolling into stablecoins.
Charles, what's the future of Lenfi? Any communication with Mantis? I don't have any direct communication, but I do know that JJ has had a discussion with the team. We got a big list of things from the team. And I'm going to talk to JJ, and we're going to go through the whole commercial spreadsheet. I think he's got more than 70 potential things to do, and he's a bit overburdened. He's actually, I think, already down in Argentina again. He's going down there with a few people.
So that concludes the clip there. Sounds like JJ, Charles's chief of staff, has reached out to the Lenfi team, Mantis, the official founder and CEO. And it looks like he's at least put together a list of things that they might need to work on. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be taking over, but definitely sounds like IOG is in the business of wanting to help to get the community back together for Lenfi. I'll keep you guys posted as that develops. In closing, I want to briefly highlight and talk about stablecoins here. We've got a massive mint of JED, and I've actually got a question for the community here too, so I'd love to get your perspective. But we've got a whale who minted over 1.35 million JED and supplied it all to Liquid Finance, which is now going to be earning them roughly 14% APY. So quite a nice little passive bit of investment there, but of course, a lot being put up in terms of $1.35 million. Now, looking here in terms of the circulating supply for JED as it currently stands, we've got $4.2 million. I double checked from the official JED.xyz website. Again, we've got a circulating supply of 4.2 million JED. But what's interesting here and where I need the community's help is understanding the total supply here on JED on Liquid V2 in their markets. So it states here that there's a total of 6.59 million JED. And I'm not sure if that's the total that's been supplied over time or since the market has been open, or if that's the total amount currently being supplied. In terms of total borrow, we've got 4.4 million JED. Again, if their circulating supply is only 4 million, I'm just a little confused if that's the entire borrow market or what's currently being borrowed. So please, guys, help me to understand that. Looking here very similarly at the USDM market, 3 million total supply, 1.82 million borrow. We've got roughly about half of that volume for USDA, and then roughly the same value here for IUSD. That said, jumping into DeFi Llama, we can take a look here again for JED. We've got total market cap of 4.2 million, which matches up with the official website, and the total circulating supply at 4.2 million again. So I think what I'm looking here on Liquid might be the total amount that's ever been lent or borrowed for JED. Again, feel free to correct me down below. Now, talking a little bit more about USDM, I did break down the fact that they've got a brand new Bitcoin to USDM liquidity pool, which is all essentially regulated It is a way to move Bitcoin liquidity into the Cardano ecosystem, and there's no bridging or wrapped assets involved. And I had Hello World, who's a watcher here on the channel, ask me about the depth of the liquidity pool. And so jumping over here, it is relatively low, but keep in mind this literally just launched, and it's basically targeted for a European community, which is where NBX is based out of. So we've got roughly around $60,000 to $70,000 worth of volume currently sort of stuck in the order book. As we can see there, we've got the majority of it coming in on the buy side of the order book. And we do have a little bit there on the sell side of the order book as well, where people are looking to potentially sell their Bitcoin and get some USDM, or we've got the opposite. People can, sell their USDM in order to buy some Bitcoin. I want to make sure I'm using the right words there. Moving over into Indigo, looking at IUSD, we've got roughly $6 million worth of their stablecoin, which is currently launched. Again, confirmation there with a market cap of $6 million. And then taking a look very briefly at USDA, they did release their monthly proof of reserves back at the beginning of April or mid-April-ish. And jumping over to that report here, we've got a total of $10 million worth of their stablecoin currently minted. So you take this 10 million, the 6 million from IUSD, and then you add the 11 to 12 million from USDM. That gives us roughly $27 to $28 million. And then if you add the $4 million from JED, that gives us roughly $31 million for stablecoins in the ecosystem. So let me know what you guys think. I need to slow down there. But that'll do it here for today's video, briefly touching on Lenfi, a potential acquisition coming in place, reviewing some of the biggest and most traded tokens here in the ecosystem, talking about the Cardano community or the Cardano Constitutional Committee or the CC election, as well as wrapping up by a brief review or doing a brief review of the stablecoin ecosystem as it currently stands. That will do it here for today's update. As always, if you've enjoyed it, please smash that thumbs up. If you want more, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to voice off down below. I appreciate you spending your time here. And as always, I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers, everybody. Take care.